Hi, this is David. I'm still working on the lighting, so please excuse the bad quality. We can only do what we can only do. Now, I've been trying to design my so-called author brand for probably 10 years now, and it always sounds so, I don't know, shallow. I'm not a product, I'm a person, you know. And there's not one thing or two things that I'm really passionate about. Lots of things interest me. And being an avid researcher, I've read article after article after article, experts talking about, how to do your brand, and YouTube videos a lot lately. And I sort of come to the idea that my work, my writing, and specifically, my writing it's not a shallow thing either. And I think what I need is actually to be me, to be what I'm interested in, do what I'm interested in, talk about what I'm interested in, and be the complicated, nerdy, awkward person that I am, and share who I am. And first equal in my identity with writing, being an author, is being Māori. And while I grew up Pākehā, or white, and I'm only just sort of learning about my own culture recently, often within Māoridom, you don't talk about who you are, you talk about where you come from, who you're connected to, your history, your family history. It's called whakapapa, so it's your lineage, where you connect to the ancestors, to the land, to your living relatives, at least your living Māori relatives anyway. And I thought I could maybe share some of my personal whakapapa and the whakapapa of the Time Speaker universe. Now, I was born in a place called Waitara. It's a little town in a place called Taranaki. The mountain is called Taranaki as well. So there's the mountain in the middle, and Taranaki is around the mountain. And Waitara is in North Taranaki. In South Taranaki, there's a place called Parihaka. And my mum's dad, who I never met because he died a few months before I was born, came from Parihaka. And while I don't have all of the right words, all of the right connections, that's where my heart is. That's where my I don't know what the English word is. That's where, when I close my eyes and I think, where's home, the first place that answers is that place, is Parihaka. And the mountain, and Waitara, and the Coromandel where I live now. And so within Māoridom, you are connected to the water, and you're connected to the land, to the mountains, to the rivers, and in those natural forces, those natural spirits, I guess, probably the wrong word, but they're a part of you, they're a part of who you are. You're not just you, you're a representation or a connection or a descendant of the people and the land, at least spiritually. And there's actually a wiki if you want to explore. I might see if I can find the link and put it in the description so that you understand why Parihaka is a big thing, or at least it is for me. And I'm very, my identity as Māori doesn't have a lot of words, not in English anyway, even though I'm not fluent in te reo. There's sort of feelings, connection, I can't really explain it. It's like my heart beats in time with the earth, within a Māori perspective, or a Māori perspective. There's many perspectives. The earth is called Papa Tuanuku, she's the earth mother, and Rangi is the sky. And I feel that identity as Māori as my heart beating in tune with Papa Tuanuku's heartbeat. And so I'm not only from here, I am here, if that makes any sense. I'm not just a person walking on the earth going, hey look, I'm a Kiwi. I feel like I'm spiritually part of the land. Which is the sort of semi-nebulous explanation that I've been using, is one of the reasons why I don't usually share it, because it's so deep, so wordless, so spiritual that it doesn't really describe it. And most of my blood family are not in connection with me. And this is related to the whakapapa of the Time Speaker universe. I was a victim of quite a lot of abuse as a child, not by my parents, it was the extended family, mostly on my dad's side. And when it started, I was 3 years old. And my writing started because I couldn't escape it, I couldn't get away. I was just a little kid, you know. And so I would tell myself stories. And all of the myths, the founding myths of the Time Speaker universe, which I will eventually outline and turn into stories and stuff, come from that early time when I was telling myself stories. Because the stories were the only way I could get through. And then as I got older, sort of the stories layered and layered and layered upon themselves. And so as I grew up, my stories grew up. I went from telling stories to myself that were like myths, like the great Queen Ishtanla of the city of Tashala, and her story as the greatest queen of the city-state, and how the greed and selfishness of her people ended up killing her. And, you know, those sorts of fables and stories, the Great War, where the entire planet of Kane was at war, and how only three and a half countries, cultures survived the war. Imagine all of Earth going to war, and only, you know, I don't know, China, the UK, Polynesia, and I don't know, New Zealand, I'm biased, survived. You know, imagine all of those, the rest of the people dying. And that's the kind of war, and there's all these other myths and fables and stories out of just the war idea. And I've got thousands of years of basic history and fable stories that I told myself as a child to get through the abuse. And then when I moved away from that family, up into the Coromandel, to a little town called Whangamata, I started telling different stories because I was getting a different kind of abuse. I was getting really badly bullied at school. And so my stories were about a superhero who's the same age as me at the time, so 11, 12, 13, who was going to save the world. she was called Cody, as in the last name of Cassandra Cody. And then I grew, and she needed a mother. So Jola came into the story, and Juniper and Giselle and Cohen, and layer after layer after layer. I layered down all the different stories because I was in different kinds of difficult situations that I couldn't escape. I couldn't fight back. And so I'd tell myself more stories. I started writing when I was 12. And when I was 20, I actually started writing the Time Speaker universe as we know it now. Although at the time it was a trilogy and not a 12-book series. May still become more than 12 books, I don't know, we'll see what happens. I'm only up to book 6. And for 10 years, TSU, or specifically Time Speaker, was the book that I taught myself how to write with, because I also have a learning difficulty. I can't process silly things like grammar and spelling and stuff. I have to learn it manually. It doesn't just intuitively go in my brain like it seems to go for everyone else. And in an effort, when I finally did actually publish Time Speaker as the first edition, which will probably not be available after I've put out the second edition. I don't even think it's available now. The biggest criticism that I got, other than write the next book, damn you, which is always good, was that I dropped the characters, the reader, into the lives of the characters, and it was so narrow, the readers couldn't keep up. There was all this new information that kept coming, and there was no explanation, because I hate exposition. And so I wrote Rise of Hawk as the, okay, well, here's the explanation, here's the background, here's the bits of the story that were mentioned but never actually expanded upon, like what happened in the desert and stuff like that. And then it got bigger from there. Layered upon layered, from the age of 3, the Time Speaker universe has been built up, just like the conlang. I started Ranka as a game because I was so frustrated with English when I was 11, I think. Nothing made sense. If you actually analyse the grammar of English, it's ridiculous. And spelling, because, you know, it's a sort of a patchwork language with spelling, so some words are, you know, French based, some words are Latin based, some words are whatever. Lots of different groups of words from lots of different groups of languages, so the spelling's always not intuitive. And so I started with Ranka with, okay, this thing in English doesn't make sense. What makes sense? What would make sense in this situation for me? And I wrote it down, and I kept writing it down, and I added layers. And the first one was hieroglyphic. I had 9 symbols, and then I added to it, and it actually grew somewhat like a natural language. Why I'm sharing this sort of sequence is the Time Speaker universe is something different. It's not like other books. It's not like other fictional universes. It's not small. It's pretty much infinite. I mean, currently the Armanan species has 49 inhabited planets in the story, and I've got three or four additional species, alien species, in the universe. So they've got at least 1 planet each. So there's a ridiculous amount of planets just halfway through the series. It's huge, and it's layered, and there's mythology. I mean, I've got the star map, and I've got the order that they colonise the different worlds and why and how. Like the first off-world colony from Kane was Pan, and it's huge. It's a bigger planet, and it's pretty much all, well, it's mostly land, because that's their food planet. And the people who've lived there for like 8,000 years, it's a greater gravity well. So they're actually genetically shorter. They're pretty much my height, 5 foot-ish. And that's just one planet. And I've got an overview of thousands and thousands of years of history. Not every planet has lots of history, but they have a general framework. I could write in the Time Speaker universe for the rest of my life, and I would still not tell all of the stories. I have folders and folders and folders and folders of notes and ideas and characters and histories and 3 dialects and a script, a kind of scripting for the conlang. I've been building the Time Speaker universe since I was 3 years old, and I'm 40. It's my life's work, literally my life's work, and it's been the only joy in my life at points, through most of my life actually. And so it's been my sanctuary, my haven, my joy, my hope. I've lived in poverty, I've been abused, I've been oppressed, I've been attacked, I've had a very difficult life, and TSU has been my joy. And I've wanted for so long to share my joy with others, to include other people who experience ridiculous levels of oppression and depression and hurt and isolation from society. The Time Speaker universe is made by a social outcast for other social outcasts. And while I'm still learning all of the more respectful ways of saying and doing things, I'm actually struggling a lot with ableism, because in my family, being smart was everything. I was always compared to my brilliant, ridiculously smart brother, and I'm actually pretty smart myself, but I was not good enough. So in my family, we valued intelligence over anything, everything, even being nice. And so I'm hardwired to think smart, good, dumb, not. And so there, I just use dumb as a word, and it's considered a word that's potentially harmful. And I don't mean to, it's sort of just changing your wiring in your head is really hard, but I'm trying. I'm trying with everything I can to build a universe, a fictional universe, where everyone who is oppressed, except the Nazis, although they're not technically oppressed, they're just oppressors, the people who are taken from society, who are rejected, othered, who are abused by society. I want to make TSU as safe for them, for us, as possible. And while I'm sure I've screwed things up, I'm going to keep walking from here and make it better, or as better as I can. My whakapapa always goes back to Parihaka, because it was a sanctuary. It was a haven for people who had been dispossessed by the racist government at the time. This was mid to late 1800s. It was a place where people went when they had nowhere else to go. And they learned and they shared and they were together and they looked after each other. And the government, of course, being an arsehole government, did their own. They wiped them out. Not quite as horrifically as they could have, but they still tried to annihilate them. The idea of uniting peacefully, or as peacefully as possible, all of the people who are dispossessed and othered by the sort of mainstream society is in my bones. It's in my blood. And while I would never think to position myself as a new, version of actual parihaka, but that idea of somewhere where we can belong is overriding everything in my life. My entire life I have been building the Time Speaker universe in a sanctuary for us. When I was young, I had the idea that it would be for everyone, but the mainstream doesn't need a fictional universe in which to have a haven and a sanctuary. Mainstream has all these other fictional universes, Star Wars and Star Trek and even Harry Potter. Mainstream has all of these fictional universes where they can dive in and have fun and enjoy themselves and make stories, but as far as I know, there isn't a fictional universe that is specifically for those of us who are oppressed and rejected by society. And that's what I want to build, and that's my entire life. I mean, I want to do other things, but my primary motivating factor is writing the books and getting them in front of the right people's eyeballs so that they can read and they can find somewhere where they belong to. And that's it. That's my focus. That's my vision. And also, obviously, get out of poverty. Out of poverty would be really nice. Spent my whole life wanting to travel, and I can't. I can't even get to the nearest city, which is like an hour away. An hour's drive. It's a good 2 or 3 hours on a moped scooter. I've done it. It's not fun. It's cold, and they're big ass trucks. I want to travel. I want to go around all the world. I want to go to the Comic-Con, like real Comic-Con. I want to meet all these people who love my books, love the stories, love the characters as much as I do. I want to make a community of us, of those of us who are rejected by society. Even if we can't change anything in, the political landscape, even if we can't let us be human, we can at least support each other. We can at least have somewhere, even if it's fiction, where we're safe, where we're welcome, where we're allowed to be who we are. And that's my vision. People tell me I am bonkers crazy for having this vision. I had people laugh at me when I was younger, particularly when I wasn't very good at writing. But that's my vision, and that will be my vision forever. Whether I can get out of poverty or not, whether I can get a large fan base or just a small one, it doesn't matter. What matters is getting the story out there and reaching out and supplying or offering sanctuary, even if it's only is probably the wrong word, but even if it's just a fictional universe where people can create their own worlds their own stories in the Time Speaker universe. So the story whakapapa and my personal whakapapa mirror each other in a way, connected to peaceful rebellion, mostly peaceful. Our lives are hard. My life is hard. It's a lot easier than it used to be. You know, I'm no longer eating eggs and potatoes every day. But I think what makes a good life isn't necessarily money or abundance or privilege, but who we care about, who we connect to, the communities that we form. Humans are social creatures, and it's agony. It's agony to be alone or to feel alone. So if we all find each other, if we all reach out and we have this one shared thing where we can belong, that's my vision. Form a community of fellow social and spiritual outcasts. If we stick together, we can get through anything. We can survive anything. I should know. I've survived things. Most people with my history don't make it to 40. They're usually dead, either by suicide or drugs or killed by their spouse or whatever. We can help spread the joy of the story, the place where all of us who don't fit in this world can fit in, can belong, and it can form a strength, a safety, a joy that can keep any heart safe from pain, or at least make pain tolerable. I write the most when I'm the most miserable, which I hope won't be a block for writing later if I ever get to abundance. But if it can keep me alive, it can keep other people alive too. So there's my really serious video, and it's half an hour. But it should form a good introduction to TSU as a brand. So hopefully my lighting is a little better than last time. And I'll talk to you again soon.